All right. Hey, we are here with Jackie Jackson this morning. I'm so excited to have her on our show. Jackie is a proud mompreneur. She's a former VP branch manager with a successful career in banking for over 10 years. Jackie is a mom of two who decided to break out of the traditional world of financing and tradition to a full-time real estate investor, making and saving money for people across the country. In her spare time, Jackie is a weekend warrior serving her country as a commissioned officer in the U.S. Army Reserves. Well, Jackie, I want to thank you right out of the gate for your service. That is awesome. In addition to her formal training, she is actively pursuing her certification as a professional housing provider, a PHP, to better serve her clients. Jackie also holds an MBA in business administration and has a track record of taking massive action while giving profitable results for her clients. Jackie is a president and a CEO of the Family Center, a not-for-profit 501c3, which is dedicated to educating young adults and their families regarding HIV, AIDS, and sexually transmitted diseases. That was founded in 2004. Giving back to her community, Jackie frequently volunteers and has served on the board of directors with Central Florida Realty Investor Association for 2 years. CFRI, a non-for-profit real estate education association, is the largest RIA in the state of Florida and second largest in the nation. Jackie is also a member of the Orange County, Florida Bar Association. She is a true entrepreneur, a respected community leader, speaker, and an author of an upcoming book, Prosperity for the Impatient, as well as a co-author with David T. Fagan, the former CEO of Guerrilla Marketing, with the book Zero to Hero in 90 Days or Less. You can also find her in an upcoming issue of the U.S. Real Estate Journal and the Jackie Jackson Show on Life Television TV in January 2017. That is awesome. She currently resides in Orlando, Florida with her two children, where she helps homeowners in need sell their homes and put more cash in their pockets quickly. Awesome. That's a long
That was a mouthful, Jim.
Yes, it was. So, yeah, again, we commend you for your service. That's awesome. You're in the real estate investment business, so I wanted to know, how long have you been in?
Oh, okay. Great question. Especially after you read my whole life story.
Yeah, left that part out.
So I've always had a passion for real estate. When I moved originally from New York City, that's where I'm from, the Big Apple, and I moved to Florida, where I joined in the military. I was a sales professional no matter what, right? So even joining in the military, I sold basically, my personality and, all of my skills and experiences and developing relationships there in the military. So it was a really easy transition to get into the people business of real estate. So my first property that I bought was in 2006. Well, everybody knows what happened in 2006, right?
Right.
The market was definitely changing and evolving. So I bought a property, a new construction, because that's what everyone did. They bought a new construction and you put down your earnest money or your deposit, and then you were supposed to wait until it was being finished built, and then you were supposed to flip it, right? Because that's what people were doing. Because
Right.
at the end of construction, you had all this that was being, created in that property while it was being built. It's supposed to be worth more than you contracted for.
Right.
When you originally said, yeah, I'm gonna buy this house. Well, but that didn't happen.
Right.
That's not what happened for me.
Okay.
So, I bought at the wrong time using the wrong strategy, and I actually got hurt in that transaction, right? So
Yeah.
I lost so my first experience as a real estate investor in 2006, which would have been, 10 years ago, was actually a very turbulent experience. I call it a very expensive, PhD.
Yeah.
It was a crash course in how not to buy real estate, but it didn't discourage me. it set me back a little, but I says, you know what, there has to be something, because more millionaires are created by owning real estate or trading real estate, being involved in that industry than any other industry. So I wasn't discouraged. What it taught me was, hey, you may need to learn some more things.
Yeah.
You may need to, yeah, right? Because everybody wants to be an investor and they just want to jump right in and, not really take the proper precautions as, successful real estate investors do. And there's some skill level and information that you're going to have to adapt, and mindset change that's going to have to be implemented before you actually take that leap. There's a lot to learn. So what I did is I went back to the drawing board and I started reading more books and educating myself about the different acquisition strategies and exit strategies. And then one day, I was already out of the military at this time, so now I'm the VP branch manager. I went into finance, so I'm a banker. And one day, I met one of my, clients, customers at the branch that I worked at. Trust document. So for those who don't know, land trust is an instrument that can be used as real estate investors do use it to maintain anonymity when you're purchasing property. So I had read about this instrument in my self-taught, lessons from reading different books, and I just I slammed my notary stamp down on the table, and I was like, "What do you do? I know what you do. You better teach me what you do right now." And he just laughed, and he was so tickled because a lot of times people may see information and just out of fear, they may not inquire or anything, but I was going to be darned if I let this gentleman walk out of my space in my life without pointing me in the right direction, because I had information but didn't know how to. At that moment, he smiled and he laughed, and he saw, my tenacity and, my desire to learn more and my eagerness. And he says, you know what? I'm going to introduce you to someone. And I was like, great. And he says, well, what are you doing next week, Wednesday? And he says, no, this is not a date. What are you doing next week, Wednesday? And I says, okay, well, I could make time for you. I have kids. I have stuff that I do after work, but, I want to know. So he says, I'm going to invite you to our local real estate investment association here in Orlando. Have you ever heard of them? And I said, no, I didn't know. I didn't even know that existed. So he was like, yeah, I'm going to take you down there. And then when you're there, you can, ask all the questions, network, find out, what they're all about. And then you can decide if you'd like to join. So sure enough, I went with him, and he introduced me to the former president at that time. And she and I hit it off really, really well. And I did join. The association. And that's really where the pivot point came. Okay. For me as an investor, by surrounding myself with other successful investors. And that's where I developed my skills, the information, resources, and I was able to begin to take classes. And that's how my career started as a real estate investor.
Awesome. Okay. All right. What is your ideal property? What are you looking for in a property? As real estate investors go, a lot of real estate investors, they buy different ways. They may buy to fix and flip. They may buy and hold. So your plan of what an ideal property is and how you go about locating it.
Absolutely, Jim. And I'm actually asked that question quite frequently. What is your niche? What do you specialize in? And I actually consider myself a transaction engineer. Okay. All right. So starting out, a lot of investors may want to specialize in one particular niche, which is fine. They may just want to master that particular strategy before learning other strategies. Well, I took a different approach, and that approach was engraved in me by my mentor that I got at the Real Estate Investment Association. Okay. And that mentor is, his name is Augie Bilot. Big plug for Augie, but he's a cool guy anyway, doesn't he?
There you go.
So, he teaches his students to become a transaction engineer. So what that really means is there shouldn't be anything or a deal that you walk away from. Okay. If you have in-depth knowledge about multiple different strategies, bring and piece them together to find opportunity where others do not. So for example, if you consider yourself a wholesaler, well, wholesalers, you have to really only focus on opportunities that are presented that provide very, very deep discounts, right?
Right.
Because you have to buy at a specific price point in order to leave enough equity in that property that it would be attractive to your end buyer, whoever it is that's going to buy that property. Well, what happens if you are presented with an opportunity that doesn't have any equity at all, right? How do you make money? Are you just going to say, oh man, I can't wholesale that. They are over, leveraged. They owe too much money on their house. So that's not a deal for me. And you know what? That just didn't sit well, because my goal was to help as many homeowners as possible. And the more I marketed myself and the more I told people about what it is that I was doing, the more stories and the more people started to open up and say, I really want to sell this house. I've been trying to sell it for so long, but nobody can help me. And if I only limited myself to being a wholesaler or, any other niche, then there would be so many people that I would walk away from and could not help. And that's the reason why I decided that I really wanted to focus on becoming a transaction engineer. So I don't really have any one specific strategy that I stick to. I allow the opportunity to dictate what strategy or strategies I'm going to have to piece together in order to create a successful solution for that buyer or that seller. So I'm knowledgeable on wholesaling, subject to, which would be taking over the existing payments for that seller, lease options or options to buy. Let's see. There's so many more. I'm like, tax deeds, right? So, someone is, past due on their real estate taxes and they're facing an auction. If they're in foreclosure and, a list pending has already been filed, whether it's a judicial state or a non-judicial state, there's just so many different avenues of approach that could be taken. And that's my military, right? Avenues of approach, right?
That's right.
War talk now. So war strategies.
That's right.
So there's so many different avenues of approach as well as exit strategies that could be formulated to create a holistic package so that everybody wins in that situation. So for me, I have to have like a minimum of like 4 wins in my deals in order for me to feel like, man, I really, really helped make someone's life that much more easier. So a win for the seller, a win for the buyer, a win for myself, of course, as well as a win for, the contractors. I have to be able to give back in the community and create more opportunities for other business owners as well too. So that's important to me, supporting my local subcontractors and the local, supply stores, or whether it's a win for other nonprofit organizations that I may be donating furniture. Sometimes I have to clean out a property or gut it. And you're like, well, what do I do with this cabinet? It's still good. I don't need it for, my purpose, but maybe I can donate it to another charity like Habitat for the Humanity or Goodwill or Salvation Army, like or another veteran association that I can donate something to, so someone else can get like another use. So I mean, really, it's like 5. That's 5 wins. I don't. Did you count? Did you keep up with it? Yeah, that was 5 wins.
That's right. That's a win all the way around, isn't it?
It's a win all the way around.
Yeah.
So that's really how I approach. That's my thinking when I'm doing real estate. So it's not really about real estate. It's really about people and supporting people. It's a people business.
Right. So what states do you primarily work in? Do you stay in your own backyard?
I tend to, and it's only because, not because I'm scared. I ain't scared of nothing, right? So, I got my uniform on, and I've had my combat training, so I'm not scared of anything. Right, I'm not. But my current systems really support me locally here in Florida. I will be branching out into other states quite soon, but I would need to have, business partners and build my team to be able to support my business that way. Basically, having boots on the ground in other markets. No pun intended, that would be able to, team up with me, and we can, create like a really, mutually beneficial relationship where everybody is successful in that situation.
Yeah. Yeah, resources are the key.
Absolutely.
Jackie, you say you're actively pursuing a certification as a professional housing provider to better serve your clients. Can you tell us a little bit about that, what it is, and how it's going to help?
Absolutely. Well, so the PHP designation is not very common to most real estate professionals. So it actually is offered through the National Real Estate Investor Association, the National RIA. So my RIA is a chapter of the National RIA, CFRI. So I can take classes through my RIA, which are give me credit towards my PHP designation, professional housing provider. Now, of course, it's optional, just like everything else. Like college is optional, right? You know.
Right.
It is, but people go to it, right?
Sure.
So, and attend because they're trying to enlighten themselves and, you know, learn new skills and more, acquire, you know, more information that they can apply to help them earn more money, essentially, or be more successful. So when I got to my RIA, I realized that they offered this designation certification. And I said, you know what? I want this. I want it because I wanted it and to actually be, you know, a professional. That's important to me, professionalism. Mm-hmm. And I thought it's okay to, like, you know, put real estate investor on your business card, right? And, you know, to, you know, order it from Vistaprint. You know, anybody can be a real estate investor. Anyone can claim to be anything, yeah. Right? But when you start to converse with them and go deeper into their product or service, you'll quickly be able to determine, you know, their credibility based on the information that they share with you, right?
Gotcha.
So for me, being perceived as credible and knowledgeable about my industry was just as important as being able to help people. So I thought that the more information that I know is the better I'll be able to serve my community. So the PHP designation of professional housing provider is open to all people. So you don't have to be a realtor or be licensed in any way to obtain this designation. A real estate investor can do that too. So what they teach you there, you'll have to, it's a total of 60 credit hours. So it's very similar to obtaining like maybe an associate's level type of degree. So it's 60 credit hours where 48 of those credit hours are specific classes and specific topics with, you know, specific amount of credits. And then you can have electives. So there's like spillage, I call it, or just extra stuff that you may be interested in. So it's about, let me see, I can name off some of the topics. So it would be about regulation, both local and national, right? Laws, ethics, that's a big one.
Yeah.
You hear, you know, real estate investors, you tell someone you're an investor and the first thing they think of is like a used car salesman, isn't it?
Right.
You know, we kind of got like a few sour apples have, you know, tarnished our reputation as professionals. So we have classes like ethics. We have classes like appraisals and understanding, you know, values, classes like marketing, classes like, as a matter of fact, if you hold on one moment, let me see if I can find it. Okay, I got it. So here's my folder. And you can see that I actually have quite a lot of like certificates, right? So I don't have to guess what they are. So, okay, here's some inspections, fair housing law, contract law, other classes like workers' comp and management, negotiation, rehabbing, tax law. That's important to investors, right?
Sure.
So purchasing and marketing and landlord and tenant law. So there's so much information for us to know as business owners and professionals that it behooved me to go after this designation so that I could be well-rounded enough to have intelligent conversations with the people that I serve.
There you go. That's awesome. Yeah.
Thank you.
Otherwise, you're just flying by the seat of your pants, right? You're just trying to wing it.
Yes, because you can, as well as you're not knowledgeable.
Can you share with us, you know, though, so Jackie, so I wanted to ask you, what is the best deal that you've ever come across?
Yes. So the best deal that I've ever come across, I've had a few of them that, you know, are near and dear to my heart because every time I help someone, it really resonates with me. But the one that really stands out in particular is an opportunity, like a property that I actually had never visited or valuable to me because it was a virtual deal. that I put together. And of course, I did have assistance because I was able to utilize one of my business partners who was local to that specific region in Florida to actually be the hands-on person for me. So that was
awesome.
one of the deals that I did where it wasn't local to me at all. So it came to me through one of my websites, my lead generation websites. And of course, you call your leads back, or you should call them back. You should call them back. And it was a gentleman and his wife, and they were wanting to sell their primary residence because they wanted to buy a bigger property somewhere else, right? So that's not uncommon. People do that all the time.
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, totally. So, but what was really funny to me is the property that he wanted to buy, he wanted to kind of like move to the outskirts of town. So he wasn't really like going anywhere, like leaving the state or relocating. He was like relocating locally to a more rural area where he can actually have a farm. So that was his motivation. He wanted to have a farm with chickens and cows and goats and pigs. And I was like, are you really? That's what you want to do?
Yeah.
And he was like, yeah, I want to move out of the city and have my own farm. And, I've identified a property and I'm in negotiations with that other seller. That's, the property he wants to buy, but he hasn't really committed to making an offer with them because he needs to sell in order to have the money, to be able to put down on his new purchase.
Gotcha.
So he was kind of like stuck between a rock and a hard place.
Yeah.
And not only did that situation was limiting for him because he had a lack of cash flow to be able to make a down payment on the other property, is the fact that the other property really wasn't ready. That owner also needed to be able to purchase their property so that another one out of state, so that they could move. So there was, it was all these, dominoes and contingencies, the things that needed to happen, if this, then that type of scenarios, in order for it to actually work. So even if he sold his house, he would be limited in moving into the new property because that owner was still there and she needed to move it into her property to make her farm vacant so that her new buyer can buy.
Gotcha.
Very complicated.
Right.
So here's how I did it. So his property, his primary residence needed some work, right?
Yeah.
There was some delayed maintenance and some issues that would cause it to be valued less than what he could sell it for on the retail market for, full market value. So it needed a new roof. It needed, some termite remediation. There was quite a few things that were going on with it. In addition, on the interior, was a little dated. It had never been updated since the time of purchase. So, he needed like a new kitchen. I mean, it was livable if it was going to be rented, but it wasn't like stellar where you can ask for like top dollar, right?
Right.
So there needed to be some updating in order for any new buyer for him to actually be willing to pay top market for that property. So what I offered him was a cash offer, and he was okay with that. But then he says, okay, Jackie, if I take your cash offer, like my family and I will be homeless. And I was like, oh, well, yeah, that makes sense because your other house is not ready, right?
Yeah.
And then he still had to also go through his pre-qualification process and underwriting process for his loan because he had to buy a loan. He had to, go and qualify for a mortgage now in order to buy his property, his other property. Right. And that funds, God bless our banking system. As a former banker, I kind of, I know the underwriting procedure. So I was able to actually application process to qualify for his loan, although I wasn't his mortgage broker. So, I gave him his disclaimer and I'm like, look, you're going to still have to, have this conversation with whoever is providing you a loan. But these are the questions you need to ask and prepare yourself to answer in order to have a successful closing, right? With all the new regulations and stuff like that. Yeah. So he needed to have his funds be in his bank account, for a certain period of time. That was one of the stipulations for his loan. So he actually had to have closing on his house to have the funds sit in his account and sourced it for his down payment.
Right.
So I was like, man, you were putting me in a peculiar spot, because if
Right.
I buy your property, like I need access to it ASAP, right?
Right.
Because time is money. I may have holding costs myself. And plus I need to, do the repairs and the renovation in order to prep it so I can sell it to another buyer.
Right.
Do you understand, the implications of that, right?
Yeah.
So he says, yes, I understand. And I was like, okay, so here's how I can help you. So we did actually close. I did close on it and I did purchase his property. But what I negotiated with him is that I will give you the amount of money that you need to have in your bank account to qualify for your mortgage, for your new mortgage that you need for your house. And what I will need you to do is take a seller held second. You're going to have to carry back a mortgage for the difference.
Yeah.
And that mortgage, what I negotiated with him is like 0% interest for 3 months, because I said, okay, we're going to give you for 3 months that you can live in the property for 3 months. But during that period of time, you're going to have to pay me rent. You become my tenant at that time.
Right.
So he paid me rent for the amount of time that he needed to stay in his house while he qualified for his mortgage, which was okay. So he agreed to be flexible to allow me to show the property and to hold open houses, while he and his family was there. And it worked out really, really well. So we ended up being able to remediate some of the repairs while he lived in the property.
Okay.
And I was able to market the house, and my local joint venture partner at the time was able to manage that whole project locally. Okay. So we were able to successfully have about 2 open houses, and we found our buyer. Okay. So our ideal buyer. Our ideal buyer was willing to wait as well too. Okay. For the owner to actually vacate the house, for his house to be ready. So the timelines ended up, matching. Yeah. Or aligning, like all the stars and planets in the universe aligned, and it worked out, pretty well. So I was able to give my end buyers filter, a bonus for keeping their buyer engaged. Okay. And part of the transaction. But there were so many moving parts to that deal. Yeah. Is the reason why it, resonates with me, because so many people were happy at the end of it. Right. So my original sell was the catalyst to him having a successful qualification for the mortgage that he needed, because he was buying a much more expensive house than he had. So he needed, he wanted to do the whole 20% down thing. And, it was a big deal for him to be able to have the opportunity to afford the payment. So he needed a specific amount that would give him the right payment, because he was jumping up in his actual monthly budget. Right. So I gave him the cash that he needed. I gave him, closed with him with $42,000. All right. Okay. So our negotiated cash purchase was $72,000. So I owed him $30,000 more. Okay. So that was my leverage to say, hey, if you don't move out, you don't get the difference. Right. Yes. Because there will be no incentive for him to go anywhere if he had all the cash. Exactly. So he agreed, and he took the second mortgage because he really didn't have much need for the rest of the money. His motivation was having his down payment, accessible. Okay. Yeah. And the difference that I was going to give to him was he was going to pay off his car loan, and he was going to bring down some of his other expenses to compensate for the higher mortgage payment that he was going to have. Sure. Yeah. Gotcha. All right. So it was a really great deal. So here are the wins, right? So the win with the seller, right? Because he was able to qualify for his mortgage. His family stayed put in the house, and he didn't have to go to a hotel and then pay absorbent, hotel daily costs. He just continued to live in his house. He was flexible for me, so I can show and market the property and be able to find the right buyer, the right fit for that property. There was a win for that buyer because they were able to get an affordable property that met their needs as well. Win for the realtor because she helped me keep her buyer engaged. A win for my joint venture partner who was local, boots on the ground, that was able to manage all of these moving parts. A win for my seller
Exactly.
because she was able to sell her farm because she didn't want to be a farmer anymore.
That's right.
And then she was able to receive the funds that she needed in order to move on to the other property because she was actually downsizing. So she was, a baby boomer, and she just didn't need that much space anymore. And, she was at a different phase in her life where that wasn't so much, all that space wasn't important to her. At that time. So it was a win for her too. So man, that was pretty cool. And then of course a win for me because I was able to be, compensated in that transaction. So it was pretty cool.
Yeah, you've earned it. So that leads me to my last question. We're kind of running out of time here.
Yes.
So what kind of advice would you have for anybody that wanted to get into investing, get into real estate?
Absolutely. And that's another question that is asked of me quite frequently. I want to get into real estate. What should I do? Where should I start? And my first response always is, have you researched your local real estate investment association yet? And they're like, I didn't know that we had one. I'm like, I just need you to do, Real Estate Investment Association, your town, USA, right? Okay. And go to their meeting, go and investigate, find out, do your due diligence and find out what kind of resources, education, they provide, if there's any coaching or any, local mentorship, because at the end of the day, there's a lot of people, that provide coaching. Sometimes you have like national gurus and, but more important to me, besides the national gurus, I want to learn from someone who is operating and successful in my local market because they have more hands-on experience and they can actually say, you know what, this zip code is one that you may need to stay away from. Or this right? Isn't that important to know?
Yep.
Or, that's actually really good. I bought a house on that street already, and I know that area very well. So I'm a huge advocate for local coaches. And I think that, if they're doing everything that they say they're doing, I mean, everyone still has to do their due diligence before, taking on any mentorship program or coaching. But I do believe that local coaches have value because they have targeted, laser targeted information. And then in addition to that, just being open to learning as well as unlearning. Because as a former banker, the only thing I knew was traditional financing and going to the bank and getting a loan. And here I am buying houses with none of my own personal credit, not using my own personal cash, just using my intellectual capital to be able to acquire those properties. So you have to learn those skills and that information first before you do anything, or else you could get hurt.
Yeah, that's right. Your first deal. So great advice, Jackie. Before I wrap things up with you, I really want to appreciate your time spent with me. You're a dear friend of mine. I'm looking forward to doing some deals with you.
Likewise.
Yeah. So before we wrap it up, tell us, the listeners, where's the best way to reach you? What's the best contact information to get a hold of you to take advantage of the services you provide in your community?
Absolutely. You can befriend me on all of my social media. So JackieBuysHomes.com is my official website, and you can find more information and do your own due diligence about me, right? I encourage it highly. So JackieBuysHomes.com. You can find me there, and there you'll have access to all my, social media. If you just Google Jackie Buys Homes, you can find me on LinkedIn, on Facebook, on Google Plus, on Instagram, on Twitter. I mean, my user, name or whatever, profile name is the same across the board, Jackie Buys Homes. You can also contact me via email at Jackie Buys Homes. I mean, it's really easy. Yeah. Or you can actually give me a call if you're, one of those people that, like that, personal touch, and you want to hear my voice, which is pretty cool. You can call me at 321-209-2721. So that's 321-209-2721. And you can, get that number from my websites or any of my social media profiles, because that's like my main business line.
Awesome.
Thank you,
and I'll display this down below for the folks that are watching too.
So much, Jim. Okay. I really appreciate the opportunity to have me. And thank you.
Thank you.